I don't think retail is a foregone conclusion. From the city's perspective, in terms of tax revenues to the city, all of those activities are net gains for the city. Residential is the only loser for city. For every house you build in a community, essentially the taxes that that house generates has more service costs than the house will generate in terms of revenue for that community. And it's a pretty significant issue. So it's always important to keep that in mind as well. And you also have plenty of space zoned for residential.
How do you feel about the ideas of the manufacturing or the retail or the jobs and the requirement of the work, walking to work, working and living kinds of concepts where you have the housing right there? Does that kind of thing work?
Oh, I think it absolutely does. I mean, if you look at communities that have very high land values, which is an economic measure of how it worked, if you will. Like, if the values are really high, then people think it's working because they wouldn't be paying the money to be there if it wasn't working. And those cities are San Francisco and New York. I mean, these are the cities that have the highest land values in the country. They're not Atlanta and LA. And that's because they're very walkable and they're very dense and they have good infrastructure and people want to live there. We may not want to, but there are plenty who do, because we all live up here. So I think that it is very possible. But I also, smart growth in Ukiah. Ukiah is, I hate to say it, but it's puny. This is a little teeny town. It takes 5 minutes to drive from one side to the other. No matter where you build here, from a certain perspective in smart growth, it's smart, as long as it's infill. It's not like you're commuting an hour to get from your job to your house here. I don't think cars are going to go away really soon. I think I've talked enough about this, probably. Yeah.
Michael, anything to add? Tell us a little bit also about the process. Is the county required to do anything at all? If a DDR comes to them and says we want to do this, is the county required to do anything?
So if they're changing their zoning, that's likely to be an amendment to their general plan. So that requires CEQA review. So they have to do an environmental impact report for the rezoning. So they will also have to go through a hearing process with the Board of Supervisors, et cetera, for that rezoning, changing the general plan, and then, which I assume they're in the middle of right now, right? Aren't you guys doing some big general plan thing? See, I tell you, I really don't know much about Ukiah, sorry. I just drive through here on my way to San Francisco. Occasionally stop for food. Sorry. I really should come more often. But you're so tired by the time you've gotten over that Willits grade. It's like, oh my God, I just need to get there. It's 3 hours, it's a long drive.
And generally speaking, who would be paying for these studies?
Usually it's the developer that pays for the study. The environmental impact report is done under the auspices of the county planning department. So the county planning department would manage that consultant. It's not a consultant that gets managed by DDR, because the lead agency would be the county in this case. Lead agency is the one that's responsible for doing the environmental review. And then you also will have comments from other agencies that are impacted by this. So the city will have an opportunity to comment. I don't know if there are any riparian habitats out there, you might get Fish and Game commenting, you might get the Water Quality Control Board having comments on it, because I'm sure it's not big enough property, there are going to be some water implications to it, et cetera, et cetera. Air Quality Management District. So there's a long review process for all that. What I would really recommend is that you call your planning department, and that's Ray Hall. He's the executive director. And get on a mailing list for this. So that's your first step. Tell them that anytime there's a topic, any discussion on this topic, that you want to be invited, whether it's Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors, whatever it is. And I would do the same for the planning director of Ukiah. I can't remember his name right now, I'm sorry. Charlie Stump. He's also a great guy. All of us planning directors get together every 3 months and complain about all the things we have to work on. And I'm not that up on what's going on in Ukiah because I'm deeply involved in a number of very big land planning projects in Fort Bragg right now that take all my time.
Okay. Michael, This appears to be in large part a political issue for the people of this area. What advice do you have for this community to be effective in its opposition?
Well, I would have several recommendations. The first is that even though the values and the political questions are huge, much of this battle is going to be waged over economic numbers. And I do think it's important that opponents here produce rigorous studies that elaborate on the kinds of points you've heard up here. The second thing I would say is to continue inviting DDR for as many public discussions as possible, because this is an issue that the more that people hear about this, I suspect the less and less support it will have. And then the third thing I would say is I would keep open the option of doing a referendum on this in the county and really having as broad a discussion on this as possible. It is a power that most communities I go to do not have, and it's something where I think you could get a lot of traction and begin to get some real public education around this. Let me say one final thing that I've been meaning to emphasize in previous exchanges here, and that is economic development deplores a vacuum, okay? And the absence of a real coherent set of ideas, principles, and projects for what you want to do for your idea of economic development here makes it possible, indeed likely, that groups like DDR will come in and try to impose their vision. So at the end of the day, there's a huge assignment here for this community, for people sitting in this room, and that huge assignment, yes, you see, she's engaged in it right now. That huge assignment is, studying the leaks, building entrepreneurship, building pools of local investment, local purchasing, and rethinking a lot of public policy to make sure that the playing field is equal for local businesses.
Can you give us some examples of a community that did resist a big box mall and what happened there?
Well, sure, there are examples. I was in Carbondale having a debate much like this one about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. Carbondale is on the western slope of Colorado. And it was an unbelievable set of events. I mean, Home Depot wanted to build a huge center on this one huge chunk of property next to this old, beautiful downtown area. This had been under debate for 6 or 7 years. There was a public initiative where the public massively repudiated the project. There were repeated votes of city council to reject this project. And it was like the Terminator, the developer just kept coming back again and again, with just a slightly tweaked plan. So this time, I mean, I was encouraging that the developer come forward with a plan of mixed use that was not 100% local, but had no big anchor chain stores, had some local businesses, some non-local businesses, had some residential mixed in with it. And as far as I can see right now, this is what the developer is proceeding to do. And the developer is actually very conscientious about sustainability and smart growth principles. So it is possible